Alright, EA Ermor turned 61, bringing in Vine Ogres for our infinite skeletons, always doing our spying, bringing in liches that we can only kind of afford, but still we are happy to have them. Our site searching not working out, and then we are attacking in Agartha. This has never gone poorly, but we have brought a lot of stuff, and we brought a lot more mages this time, and we're also not really up against very much. So I do think there's a little bit of patrolling here. I don't think these hurlers, who are actually sacred, I did not know that, but yeah, I don't think they're normally part of the province defense. But they're not going to be enough stuff. Yeah, we have Wailing Winds. We do go through our full script, unfortunately, so that does mean that gem usage happens. Now we do have reloads, I'm pretty sure, but you know, we could use more. We're always running a little light in terms of gems for these armies, since they do spend them prodigiously, but we at least don't take too many casualties. We do manage to bleed 2 sacreds, which is always sad, and I lied about those ancient stone hurlers not being part of the province defense. It looks like they are, so that's kind of cool. It's not very often that you get sacred units as part of your province defense, although you do need, it looks like, pretty heavy investment, you know, to actually get any of them at all. Of course, this does mean that Mortality Grasp is still out there, biding his time, waiting until the moment is right. But, you know, we have started to destroy the fort. We didn't quite get the 1-turn crack, but still, critically damaged is nice. So, you know, we should crack it next turn, and then we can go in next turn if we want. And then, of course, Agartha is also fighting against Russ, so it looks like they have 1 counter raid. This just a mage here, they're down to it. So this looks like maybe Skelly spam, or actually possibly going to do like Soul Vortex. Okay, no, it uses it for invulnerability, so this looks like just, you know, protection tanking, because he also has Earth, so he's going to be able to raise his natural protection up pretty high. Although, I don't think that stacks, so yeah, it looks like the invulnerability ends up being a little bit higher. That's this total protection versus mundane attacks, but you can see even with just the earth magic, you can get your total protection up pretty close, so I feel like probably that death gem would have been better used as Soul Vortex, which, like, you need 3 death, and he only had 2. It would have helped, because, like, yeah, he would have been getting fatigue and health back in this situation, whereas, like, right now, he's just getting slowly chipped down, yeah, and his morale fails, so. But, you know, I mean, Agartha's down to it. They're just sending out what they have, and probably also their investment in the game has waned, as often is the case. Not always. Sometimes, you know, some people really like the last stands, but a lot of people don't, and yeah, I understand that. And so yeah, this is Russ's main force. It does look like they've either brought a Holy 3 in or brought their Prophet back in, because they managed to get, you know, full bless, divine blessing on all their units. This also triggers gem usage, and so it looks like they have Swarm and the Ravenous Swarm up. Ravenous Swarm won't really matter too much here, although Agartha, you know, does have some death magic, so it, you know, could help in those cases, but no undead here. But otherwise, it's just province defense, also air elementals, so, like, yeah, this is a pretty scary army from Russ. Lots of scary sacreds, some relevant magic support, yeah, Howl and Relief, as well as, like, elementals, so we'll see if they have the gems to support this. Because, you know, like I said, these armies tend to chew through gems really quickly. But still, they have locked down the neighboring fort, and they don't really lose much of consequence, just a little bit of siege strength against, yeah, pretty heavy province defense investment again. Old age plagues us, of course. It's going to be an ongoing theme. As an unexpected event, Barbarian Horde pillages. I think we were notified about this, but we did not move anybody else out, you know, to deal with it. We find some fire gems in our capital. That's nice. I was thinking it was going to be a bad event. And then let's just take a look. Barbarians, yeah, no, we just have our province defense here. That's not going to work out. So yeah, we have, you know, 40-ish barbarians hanging out in one of our provinces, but it's pretty close to a lot of our forts, so we should be able to deal with that quickly. And I'll catch you guys after the jump. Alright, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. We are accidentally going to war against Russ. So, yeah, you can't really see it here on the map, but, you know, I did reach out to Russ, and, you know, at this point, I mean, at all points in the game, the whole game, I've been worried about Niflheim, and, you know, looking at the situation with Russ, I felt that if the two of us tangled, it would kind of not necessarily hand the game to Niflheim, right? Because, you know, that's discounting other players. So we don't know what they might do, but it would definitely prevent us from doing anything about Niflheim, and would probably also open us up to an attack from Niflheim, because while I do think we could beat Russ, I think it's also going to be a pretty tough war. So I started talking with this player, suggesting like, hey, we should like probably work together against Niflheim. They're in a pretty good position. They were not thrilled about this idea, pointing out that, vulturing a capital that they'd fought for is not a great way to start a partnership. Which of course, irked me a bit, since, I tried to explain that, we're definitely not vulturing. This is a continuation of an earlier war, essentially. And then I also offered, I think it was 6 lanterns, roughly that amount of lanterns, in payment for Agartha. And I was not thrilled to be making that offer, but I did feel it was worth it. So both of these conversations were running concurrently, and so Russ responded, "That's fair," apparently to the offer, which I totally missed, because they launched into an explanation about how Agartha had attacked them with their some sacreds and their pretender, and they'd seen it off, and then there was like basically nothing after that, and they were a little confused as to like why Agartha was so weak. So I thought that's fair was referring to like, hey, I'm not vulturing, this is the reason Agartha is so weak is because we've already been fighting them. So as far as I was concerned, Russ just left the offer kind of hanging in the air with like no agreement. Now I certainly could have followed up, but I felt they clearly weren't thrilled they were coming in Agartha. I wasn't thrilled to be paying for a capital that we'd already, I've already paid a lot for Agartha. This is not Russ's problem, but, it does make that, to have to, in my mind, then go and, repeatedly ask like, hey, do you want this deal? It just didn't really seem like we were going to come to an agreement. So I figured, well, if they're not going to agree to our terms and, they're already looking at this as though we're vulturing this capital, the war is going to start shortly anyway. We might as well be the ones to start it, since we already have a few raiders, down in this area. So, we're going to raid this province, just with our light infantry there, our more militia types, and then we're going to send just a Ostadi raid out this way, and then we're moving up some Ostadi over here to try to break through, because, like I've talked about, it does kind of seem like the interior of Russ's lands are not super well defended. So, if we can get like a couple Ostadi groups through the choke point of their capital, then we'll be in better shape. So yeah, this is not a war that I was planning on. It's, you can see like we're only making 2 attacks to open with, and we're desperately recruiting pretty much everywhere up here, because we're gonna have to assemble more troops. Luckily, we didn't send everybody in, because part of that I'm sure also was just a little bit of concern about Niflheim. Although it does look like we're sending some people down to Agartha to reinforce. So let's make sure that we actually are sending everybody down. But yeah, that makes sense, right? Because again, we're not worried about what Agartha has. We're worried about what we just saw, right? What we just saw Russ do, that is right here bordering us. So while we do absolutely need forces up here in the north, because it does look like there's quite a few Skinshifters here now. Like, yeah, their numbers built up, a lot faster than I would have hoped. So we're definitely going to need, something to deal with that. Although, we have a good amount of sacreds here, so it's not like we're defenseless up here. Though we are moving out, the majority, I think pretty much, all of our infantry. So that's a bit on the questionable side. But we should be able to recruit up. Yeah, we're recruiting, the leves, just because we need some bodies. So we'll probably have to play defense in the north, other than our raiding groups here to begin with. But we're gonna bring a lot of stuff to bear, and I think this is the majority of what Russ has. Right, is in this army, and then what's on top of their capital. So if we can beat this army. They haven't had any time to consolidate, this territory from Agartha, which he really is rightfully ours anyway. So, we should hopefully be able to overrun this relatively quickly. And in a lot of ways, we've talked, like, this is probably an easier war than fighting against Niflheim, because, there's our lack of cold resistance is going to be a big problem attacking in Niflheim, and their bless and their sacreds, Niflheim's that is really nasty. I mean, Russ's sacreds and bless is also pretty nasty. But I just think like Niflheim's in a bit of a stronger position overall. So like in a void, if I had to pick one war or the other, I do think Russ is the war that I would pick. But because I am worried about Niflheim running away with it, that's why I was hoping to work with Russ. The other thing too is we could talk about. It's like, well, yeah, let's work together against Niflheim eventually. But Russ, I'm not even sure if they actually, they don't yet border Niflheim. So it's like Russ could spend some time, eating Sarumetia, who's not that big, eating Macone, who's not that big, right? And that would give them a pretty substantial border with Niflheim. And in the meantime, we could then help out, Abyssia a bit with Vanheim and, eat Ulm and then maybe go down and, fight for Moria. Basically, both of us, could fight some easier wars, right? And then once we're done with those, then we can both, turn our attention to Niflheim. So that was the thought, but it is not to be due to miscommunication, or maybe I'm just a dastardly person who offers an agreement and then attacks immediately. I'm sure that's what Russ saw. So we'll have to see how this develops. As an initial note, not an auspicious sign. Russ has one turn cracked this fortification, so they are one turn ahead of us, and we definitely don't want to be in a situation where we fight a battle with Russ and then try to storm against Agartha, because A, I don't know if we have the gems to support that, and then B, it could go pretty badly for us, because the fight against Russ, there's going to be a lot of casualties. So there's a good chance that if we have to fight against Russ and then we try to storm Agartha, we then fail the storm of Agartha. So the fact that Russ is like one turn ahead of us is pretty significant, and again, just highlights, getting that one turn crack is really important. So yeah, I think let's take a look at research. Right, working on Alteration 8, that will be pretty nice. That'll give us Will of the Fates is the main thing that we're going to be taking away from that. But there are definitely, a few other useful spells there, mostly some of the resistances, but also like Wizard's Tower is pretty nice, though we don't really have the Earth Gems to be supporting a ton of those. It just creates a fortification instantly. But I do think we have, more or less the research that we need to fight this war. So, while Will of the Fates is going to be really nice, it's not essential. So yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 61. All right, EA Ermor, turn 62. We finished research and alteration, level 8. Now we're moving on to conjuration, probably for some diversity summons, and also just to get a hold of some mages that have more hit points than our old men. Doing our spying, I believe we're teleporting these guys in to support our army, so probably bringing in last-minute spells that I feel like we're really, really going to need against Russ now that weren't as essential if we were just going to be going up against Agartha. Bringing in Vine Ogres, of course, doing some site searching, mostly missing, but we do find a nature site here, which is nice, because that is one of the gem types that we're really struggling with right now. And then we attack those barbarians immediately. Again, wasting the Vine Ogres. I don't love this. Actually, no, in this case, we're using them for our skeleton production. We should be. Yeah, so these guys, I like to make a round of skeletons first, right, as the first spell. I do think that, that's definitely valuable because some stuff is really fast and is going to interrupt the rest of your script. But these guys should, in theory, eventually be putting up, yeah, there you go, Soul Vortex. So that, yeah, you can see it's healing them, and it should also be giving them fatigue back, so they're going to be able to make a lot more skeletons than they normally would. In this case, we might be a little bit too close together. I think we're out of range. Nope, it looks like so. Our own soul vortexes are, trying to drain, each other. So we put these guys a little too close together. That is not ideal. But otherwise, pretty standard Skelly spam. The only difference is now we have a Soul Vortex battery. And that does work out against, the barbarians. We don't lose anybody. We do have to use 2 mages, or 3 mages. But, that's not too bad for clearing barbarians. And then this is one of our raids against Russ. And, yeah, I think this was on top of that unforted throne. And there is definitely a defense here. Quite a bit of defense. So they must have anticipated, that, or maybe it's just being cautious in general, because in theory this would be a surprise to them, I would think, since they were thinking that, you know, we'd agreed, although we certainly hadn't agreed to a non-aggression pact yet. Just that, you know, the agreement would have been that I was going to get Agartha, and that, you know, they were going to get the lanterns. I don't think there was a non-aggression pact agreement in there. Anyway, obviously their sacreds run over us, and there's even an air elemental or two summoned. So that's not an auspicious start to this war, but, I mean, you know, we can definitely handle losing some Ostati. We can produce a lot more of those. And then we have our leves raiding out against, you know, some random province. And these are Jade Maidens. So this is actually a little on the dangerous side. You know, normally I would say this amount of leves, no problem. But yeah, leves, like, they're not fantastic. That's the thing. So while they are cheaper, and this maybe works out for us, yeah, the command staff comes away with it. So that was pretty close, and, you know, this force is no longer going to be viable as a raiding group. And I have to say, I think in future I'm going to try to do most of my raiding with the Ostati rather than the leves or the weaker troops. Even though it's a little more expensive, I do think it's worth it, because this will not be the only failure of the leves, although we do at least capture that province, and we don't actually lose that many. It's just, you know, the rest of them rout, right? So, like, yeah, we lose a couple in the retreat, and then the rest of them get scattered. So yeah, not an ideal raid. And then Russ is taking this fortification with their very scary army, and they're up against some scary stuff in here. So there's some Mind Blasters, quite a few casters. These Living Mercuries especially are pretty nasty. They're kind of like water elementals, and they get, you know, a lot of these crush attacks that are armor piercing. And in addition to that, they get, you know, Poison Cloud that's pretty nasty, and then, you know, the resistances. So, like, yeah, these are pretty nasty. And it does look like Russ is enough at least for one gem reload, because we see Howl coming up again. Probably another Ravenous Swarm, which is going to be bad news for this Umbral. Yeah, some air elementals coming in. Also some thugs? No, it looks like just a couple, like, casts of just flight. Like, so not mass flight, but just a few regular flights. But still, like, there's even a few of these Skinshifters in the back. You can see, like, they're really doing work. The fact that they have wolves for cover is also really helpful. And it's pretty much keeping these mages busy and irrelevant, although the gap does get held. And let's see if they manage to get poison resistance off. Russ did not, so, you know, this could end up being a bit painful for them. Although it looks like the Living Mercuries got distracted, yeah, by the wolves, and are now headed back and poisoning Agartha's own mages, who also do not have poison resistance. So the Living Mercuries don't, you know, have morale, but you can also see that the Skinshifters really don't care about much and kill them quite quickly, and have a lot of hit points too. So, you know, while they take some bleeding damage there and some poison damage too, I don't think that many of them were killed. Yeah, so three Skinshifters were lost against, like, a defense force that could have been kind of nasty. You know, I mean, still, like, badly outmatched. But in a void, I definitely would expect this force to deal more than, you know, just 6 casualties to an assaulting force. So this is a little concerning, since, you know, now it is next to us and established in its own fortification. We do not storm this turn because we have to still breach the walls, which we've at least done. So that's good. Of course, you know, old age, burden of time, ongoing in the background. This is going to be a constant drumbeat. And then, you know, the horror cult spreading its blasphemies. We do actually have someone here patrolling. I'm not sure if that's, like, helpful. We do lose Dominion here, so maybe this wasn't quite as advanced as I thought, but I'm pretty sure that there was nothing we could have done about it. And yeah, that's going to continue to just, you know, do its thing. Bad omens, that's fine. We already have plenty of misfortune. We buy some gems on the cheap. That is nice. And then Oceania is finally vanquished. They'd already gone to AI, and I suspect that it was probably Niflheim finishing them off, although I do think they were also fighting some underwater foes at the time. And I will catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Even though we have cracked Agartha, we are not storming this turn. So we did scry inside, and there's a decent amount of stuff in here. Luckily, we don't see any of those living Mercuries, but there are magma children in here and quite a few mages, right? This is like mostly mages, well, mostly engravers who are the researcher types at least, but some Earth Readers, right? 50 units, also mortality grasps. So we're just gonna poke our head in, right, and see exactly how many gems arrayed against us and things like that, and also somewhat in the hopes that Russ just attacks us, and then we can fight that battle, hopefully win it, and then we can take Agartha without having to worry about fighting two battles in the same turn. The other option would be potentially to split our forces. We could leave either a complete token force, one fellow on top of Agartha, in the hopes that Agartha doesn't sally, and then push in against Russ and try to trap them in their fort, or maybe leave enough stuff that we feel like we could beat what Agartha has inside here, maybe some anti-super combatant stuff, with a little bit of chaff, and then send the majority of our stuff against Russ. But I don't love the idea of leaving an untaken fort, in our rear, and if Agartha breaks out, we don't really have a ton of stuff right behind all of this, because we're sending most of the rest of our stuff up to the north here, so we are going to be attacking Russ near their capital. We'll probably go for this throne fort here first, because if we can beat these Skinshifters, I think that's pretty much it, and we really do want to jump on top of Russ as soon as possible to stop the Skinshifter production. The rest of their troops, and even to a lesser extent the rest of their mages, are not as scary, so locking down their capital is definitely going to be really important. So to that end, we have quite a few of our sacreds here, some slingers, well, flaming arrows, a little bit of bug production, some fire elemental production, also like a large augur communion, to do some evocations and things like that. We'll probably manage to get Will of the Fates out. Yep, here it is right here. Mass protection, basically just a bunch of stuff, including, of course, some infantry. Perhaps not as much infantry as I would like, although maybe a more reasonable number. But of course, gathering all this together does mean that, we don't have a ton of stuff that's like loose back in our forts. So if Agartha were to get loose and, start raiding us, I'm not sure we'd be able to come up with an answer really quickly. So for now, we're just going to poke our heads in, see what's inside the fort so we know exactly what we're up against. And then, like I said, hopefully bait Russ into attacking us immediately. This is a very strong army. They do want Agartha. We haven't taken it yet. There's a good chance they'll be able to see that we've cracked it. So there's a good chance we'll be storming this turn. They can reload on gems, whereas, we have not been able to, assuming that we haven't brought gem carriers in. Now, we have brought gem carriers in, but still, we don't have easy access to a lab. So in a lot of ways, this is a good turn for Russ to attack. So, we'll see if they decide to attack us. Otherwise, sadly, we don't really have a ton of raids going on because, again, we were not planning on this war, but we do have an assassin, so we're going to try to assassinate this Thunder Priest that's here. We're also starting to forge some bottles of water, with this lady here. So we're going to have some water bottle assassins. We have got one of them moving out. We're also going to be bringing up, our skeleton production to add to this army in the north. And then also like reinforcing this raiding group. We would like to hold on to this temple. This is where I was thinking about, potentially making Flamen. We're probably not going to be doing that now unless this war goes really well for us. We're able to knock out Russ quickly because, this is no longer a secure border, but we'd like to hold on to the temple if we can, and we are planning on raiding out from here. But I do think we're going to need a bit more, right? Because we do see there's some Skinshifters here. We're commanded by a white mage. So I believe we've got, pretty substantial augur communion, actually two different augur communions, really, that we'll be able to separate out if we manage to break through. And so we might even disband this raiding group essentially and add these infantry as bodyguards to all these mages, and then we can just rely on, fire elemental summoning. And these groups should be able to go, at least up against province defense as many times as we need, since they have the jars. So they'll always have a fire gem to make their fire elemental. And then to help open the way, right, against this white mage and his Skinshifter friends, we have some mind hunts going off against that province. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, troop production has slowed fairly significantly. We are recruiting some raiders here, but we're not even recruiting, no equite in the capital, just some gladiators, because I do think, gladiators usually do decent. They trade decently well against nasty sacreds, at least as far as mundane troops go. They'll do a better job than our Ostati. Of course, the only problem is they're one-time use only. Hopefully, we're still getting full mage production. Yeah, we're still recruiting those stealthy nature guys. In the capital, we're recruiting a priest. We do have a lot of sacreds, and I don't know if we have a holy 3 up here. Yeah, it looks like we do not. Wait, no, I lied. We do have a holy 3. So, yeah, I'm not sure. We already have a decent number of priests. I'm not sure if we really need any more, but if we do want to split out our equite into raiding groups, they will need a priest, and we're starting to do more mind hunting. So we do already have a priest here, so we kind of already have our priest coverage up, at least for our current level of mind hunters. But if we want to start adding more mind hunters on, we might need more healers. Otherwise, no mage production here. Yeah, so not actually a lot of mage production this turn. And, this is the Centurions, possibly a mistake. Centurions are really nice. They give a leadership bonus. You can do all the formations. They're decently survivable, so I do really like them, but some of these guys I end up using to lead like raiding groups. For instance, now, I think this raiding group right here that we just lost, I believe was led by a Centurion. Yeah, here's a Centurion. And I think that's not really ideal. So for these more high risk raiders, probably better to use independent commanders and have the Centurions be leading, more substantial armies. But that's not where my head was at the time. So I think this is thinking, hey, we're going to need more leadership for raiding groups. So, recruiting some of that. And then we're probably still recruiting, mages down here in TNN, because we're just starting to build up a decent number of mages, but could certainly still use a few more, since it's likely that our forces are going to be really busy, and we don't have any non-aggression packs with either of our neighbors down here. Probably not recruiting yet. No throne mage production, so it looks like we're a little low on money this turn. Not actually sure why, and we're not even recruiting one of our lizard shamans, who one of the few things that I put on repeat recruitment. So anyway, that's where our mage production is this turn. A little on the light side, and I'm not really 100% sure where that money is going, to be honest. But it's going to be focused with this war against Russ very soon. Research-wise, moving on conjuration. Then construction 7 will get us golems, also weapons of sharpness, very useful. In terms of the wider world, I feel like we've withdrawn quite a few of our scouts. We still have some eyes. I think we probably just park this guy on the border between Jabalba and Niflheim, hoping to catch some action there. Haven't really seen a lot of action over here, just moving through and getting an idea of Fomoria's territory, checking out the Fomoria-Vanheim-Ulm border. But we haven't really caught anything else new in terms of our scouting, and I think that more or less covers turn 62.